The Galactic Council wanted to send a message. They wanted to show humanity its place in the galaxy. So they took an innocent man, Ambassador Elias Carter, and burned him alive. The event was broadcasted across thousands of systems. Billions of aliens watched as the flames consumed him, his screams echoing through the void. For the Council, it was a victory. They believed this act would break Earth's spirit, force them into submission. They had no idea what they had just done. A broadcast of horror. On every human world, every colony, every station orbiting distant stars, the transmission played. People stopped in the streets, their eyes fixed on the screens. Mothers covered their children's ears. Soldiers clenched their fists. Leaders stood frozen in their command centers. No one spoke. No one moved. The flames on the screen burned away any last illusion that peace was possible. The Council had declared war, not with words, not with fleets, but with fire and cruelty. And humanity never forgot cruelty. They remembered it. And they repaid it. Earth's silence. The aliens expected humanity to beg for mercy, to call for negotiations. But Earth's response was silence. No official statement, no declaration of war, no threats, just silence. For the first time, the Council felt something they had never known before. Fear. Because they had seen this before, not from humans, but from the monsters they had fought long ago. The ones who did not argue, did not bargain. The ones who simply destroyed. And now, they had given humanity a reason to become monsters. The disappearance of ships. At first, it was small. Human freighters vanished from trade routes. Civilian ships stopped transmitting signals. Military outposts reported unusual activity before going dark. Then, entire fleets disappeared. The Council ordered scouts to investigate, but they found nothing. No wreckage, no distress beacons, just emptiness. It was as if humanity had been wiped out, as if they had accepted their fate and simply vanished. But deep in the dark, behind planets, within asteroid fields, in the empty spaces between stars, humanity was watching. And they were waiting. The fear spreads. Rumors spread through the galaxy. Some claimed Earth's leaders had gone into hiding, planning revenge. Others whispered that the humans were preparing something far worse than war. The Council dismissed the rumors as paranoia. But then, the first strike came. A minor fuel station on the edge of Council space. Gone. No explosions. No warning. Just gone. Then, a military outpost. Then, a major trading hub. Every time, it was the same. No survivors. No wreckage. Just silence. The Council had tried to break humanity's spirit. Instead, they had created a nightmare. The calm before the inferno. On Earth, in hidden bases across the Sol system, humanity prepared. They did not rage. They did not shout for vengeance. They simply got to work. Weapons were loaded. Ships were readied. Codes were sent, activating sleeper cells on Council worlds. And as the final preparations were made, a single message was sent across the stars. You started this fire. Now drown in it. The fall of Darvok 3 sent shockwaves through the galaxy. The Council's strongest world, its military hub, had been wiped from existence. No armies had marched upon its surface. No fleet had come to claim its skies. It had simply ceased to exist. The horror of it all wasn't just the destruction, it was the precision. Every strike, every explosion, every loss had been calculated. Humanity had not attacked blindly. They had chosen their targets with care, dismantling the Council piece by piece. The remaining leaders of the Council gathered in desperation. They were no longer the proud rulers of a galactic empire. They were frightened creatures huddling together in fear, hoping that unity could somehow save them. But even in their heavily fortified chambers, surrounded by their most trusted guards, they did not feel safe. Because nowhere was safe anymore. Not for them. Across Council space, The nightmare continued. Key supply lines vanished overnight. Entire fleets went dark, their last transmissions filled with static and whispered terror. The planetary defense forces on over a dozen worlds began abandoning their posts. Governors, once loyal to the Council, fled into deep space, hoping to escape humanity's wrath. But there was no escape. The moment they left the safety of their strongholds, their ships would go silent, one by one, vanishing into the void. Panic turned into collapse. The Council tried to keep order, but no one would listen. The Draknar homeworld closed its borders, refusing to aid their allies. The HFY Dominion pulled its fleets back, choosing survival over loyalty. The Council's great empire, built on fear, was crumbling under its own weight. The very thing they had used to control the galaxy had now turned against them. They were afraid, and fear made them weak. Then the final blow came. A message, broadcasted across every system, on every frequency, in every language known to the galaxy. A simple recording. It showed a single human, a soldier, standing on the burned ruins of Darvok 3. Helmet off, face visible, eyes cold. Behind him, the world still smoldered, its cities reduced to nothing. And then he spoke. This is not war. This is justice. You burned one of us alive. You laughed. You cheered. You thought it would scare us. But humans do not fear fire. We become it. You are not rulers anymore. You are not conquerors. You are prey. Run. Hide. Beg for mercy. It won't matter. Because now, there is only one law in this galaxy. Humanity does not forgive. The transmission ended, and the galaxy fell into silence. The moment the sky turned red, Velcora Prime was doomed. The Galactic Council's last stronghold, their final hope, was about to be erased from existence. The Council leaders rushed to their command centers, barking orders, demanding their fleets engage, their shields hold, their planetary defenses fire. Nothing happened. Their mighty warships, thousands strong, did not move. Their defensive stations, their planetary cannons, stayed silent. Every system had been hijacked. Every safeguard they had relied on had already been dismantled. From the inside, the humans had been here long before this night. A ripple of realization spread through the Council chamber. Their soldiers, their guards, their technicians, how many of them were human? How many of them had been waiting for this moment? Panic turned to terror. The sky above them burned as orbital stations exploded, raining molten debris upon the city below. Buildings crumbled. Streets cracked open. The Council leaders tried to escape, but their personal ships were dead in the air, their launch codes overridden. Every corridor, every door sealed itself shut. Then the first missile struck. The Council's great palace, once a symbol of absolute authority, was the first to fall. The explosion shattered the sky, sending fire and smoke billowing into the heavens. Shockwaves tore through the capital, collapsing skyscrapers like sandcastles. The air filled with screams, screams that had once belonged to the powerful, the untouchable. Now, they were nothing. Above the dying planet, they finally saw them. Human warships, but not fleets, not thousands. Only a handful, a force so small it should have been laughable. But the Council leaders did not laugh. They knew what those ships meant. Humanity wasn't here for war. They were here to finish it. One by one, targeted kinetic strikes rained down upon Velcora Prime. Not indiscriminate bombing, not mindless destruction. Precision, execution. The government centers, the military bases, the last remaining strongholds of the Council vanished in columns of fire. There would be no survivors. No one would rebuild this empire. Deep beneath the city, in a bunker fortified against planetary bombardment, the last remaining Council leader shook with fear. His claws trembled as he watched the burning remains of his world on a flickering screen. His species had ruled the stars for centuries. They had crushed rebellions, enslaved civilizations, wiped out entire planets without hesitation. But they had made a mistake. They had underestimated humanity. A voice crackled over the bunker's comms. "This is Admiral Cole of the Terran Retribution Fleet." The council leader's breath caught in his throat. "Your empire is gone. Your armies are gone. Your power is gone." A deep rumbling shook the bunker. The walls cracked. The ceiling groaned. The last council leader fell to his knees, eyes wide with terror. This is not conquest. This is not war. This is consequence. Outside, the final blast struck. Velcora Prime, the heart of the Galactic Council, ceased to exist. The Council was no more, and in the endless darkness of space, humanity stood alone. The rulers of the stars, the bringers of fire, because when they burned one of us alive, they thought it would make us weak. They were wrong. The silence after the humans' message was more terrifying than any war. The Galactic Council's once mighty empire had been reduced to a trembling shadow of its former self. Their allies had abandoned them. Their fleets had been shattered. Their fortresses, once symbols of absolute power, stood empty, abandoned by soldiers who no longer believed in their leaders. And worst of all, no one knew where the humans were. They didn't march in legions. They didn't invade planets in massive numbers. They struck from the darkness, like predators toying with their prey before the kill. One by one, the remaining strongholds of the Council fell without a fight. Weapons systems malfunctioned. Shields dropped. High-ranking officials disappeared overnight. By the time the Council's fleets arrived to investigate, there was nothing left but ghost cities, and the same haunting message burned into the ground. Humanity does not forgive. Entire sectors collapsed into chaos. Planets that had once feared the Council rose in rebellion. Those who had suffered under their rule now joined the humans, not because Earth had asked them to, but because they had seen something they had never seen before. The Council was weak. The Council was afraid. And if there was ever a time to destroy them, it was now. In desperation, the last surviving Council leaders gathered on their most fortified world, Velcora Prime. The planet was their ultimate stronghold, protected by thousands of warships, defense stations, and planetary cannons. No army in history had ever taken it. No force had ever dared to attack it directly. If they could hold Velcora Prime, they believed, they could still rebuild. They could still regain control. But then, the attacks stopped. For days, there was nothing. No disappearances. No destroyed fleets. No eerie messages burned into the ground. The humans had gone silent. The Council leaders started to believe that maybe, just maybe, they had won. Maybe humanity had finally exhausted itself. Then, one night, every screen, every communicator, every device in the Council's capital city flickered to life. A human face appeared. Not a soldier, not a warrior, but someone the Council recognized instantly. It was Ambassador Daniel Carter, the same human diplomat they had burned alive. The last time they had seen him, he was screaming in agony as flames consumed him. His body had been turned to ash before their very eyes. He was dead, and yet there he was. He didn't speak. He only stared, silent, unblinking, as if he was watching them, judging them. Then, in a voice colder than death itself, he whispered one word: "Burn." At that moment, the sky over Velcora Prime turned red. It wasn't just an attack. It was the end. You said. The Galactic Council had ruled for centuries. They had seen wars, rebellions, and uprisings. They had crushed empires before they could rise, enslaved species before they could resist. But this was different. They weren't fighting an enemy they could see. They weren't battling fleets or armies. They were fighting ghosts. And ghosts don't fight fair, vanishing without a trace. Across Council space, ships kept disappearing. It wasn't just military vessels anymore. Civilian freighters, supply convoys, even passenger ships. Gone. No distress signals. No wreckage. No bodies. Just nothing. Entire space stations went dark. Planets lost contact with their leaders. Mining colonies woke up to find their governors missing. Only empty chairs and blood-stained floors remained. Panic spread. Trade collapsed. Systems began shutting their borders. Even the Council's most loyal allies started questioning if they should remain by their side. Fear was winning the war before a single battle had even begun. The enemy you cannot see. The Council's admirals were furious. "This is a coward's war," roared High Commander Tarvik, his mandibles clicking in frustration. "Let them face us in open battle." But the humans wouldn't. They didn't need to. Because their war wasn't fought in open space. It was fought in the dark. Terror in the shadows. An elite Council warship, the Zorvus Prime, was dispatched to hunt down the humans. It carried over 5,000 soldiers, the best warriors in the galaxy. But on its third night in deep space, the alarm screamed. The crew rushed to battle stations. The ship's sensors picked up nothing. Yet one by one, soldiers began disappearing. First, a security officer vanished from the command deck. Then, an engineer in the reactor room. Then, an entire squad of warriors from the lower decks. Panic took over. Soldiers refused to patrol alone. Lights flickered as systems began failing. On the fourth day, the captain received a message. It was written in human script, burned into the metal of the bridge wall. "You are already dead." 12 hours later, the Zorvus Prime was found, drifting through space. Not a single life form aboard. The Council retrieved the ship, desperate to understand what had happened. The security footage was intact. The last thing the crew saw before the cameras went dark was a single human stepping onto the bridge and smiling. The breaking point. The Council's paranoia grew. Even in their most fortified worlds, in their strongest fleets, they felt hunted. High-ranking officers resigned. Soldiers deserted their posts. Fear made even the bravest warriors weak. And then, just as the Council's paranoia reached its peak, Earth finally spoke. A single transmission, broadcasted across every system. A human voice. Calm. Cold. Deadly. "You burned one of us alive. You thought it would scare us. Now the galaxy burns. You cannot see us. You cannot stop us. You cannot escape. This is not war. This is punishment." The message ended. And at that moment, every leader in the Council understood what true fear felt like. Because the ghosts of war had come for them, and there was nowhere left to hide. The Galactic Council thought humanity was broken. They expected fear. They expected surrender. They got neither. Instead, the first flames of vengeance began to spread across the stars. The disappearing worlds. It started with minor outposts. Remote planets, unimportant colonies, vanishing overnight. At first, the Council dismissed the reports. Pirates, they said. Maybe rebels. But then, it wasn't just outposts. An entire moon, gone silent. A research station, evacuated. Every scientist missing. A military supply depot, reduced to dust, its wreckage scattered across the void. No distress calls. No survivors. No evidence of what happened. Only one thing was always left behind. A single message, burned into metal, scratched into walls, written in the ashes. "We are coming." The Council's growing fear. The Council called an emergency meeting. Panic spread among the representatives. The Zelvar, the Draknar, the Isheri, all of them had ruled the galaxy for centuries. They had crushed rebellions, wiped out civilizations, enslaved countless worlds. But now, they were afraid. They had burned one human alive, and now their empire was crumbling. A senator from the Xorlan Empire slammed his fist on the table. "Where are the humans hiding?" he demanded. "Where is their fleet?" No one had an answer. Because there were no human fleets. There were no massive invasions, no grand space battles. Only silence, followed by destruction. It was as if humanity was everywhere and nowhere at once. and that terrified them. A world on fire. Then, the first major strike came. Varan 6, a heavily fortified industrial world, home to one of the Council's largest shipyards, a place once thought untouchable. One night, without warning, the sky turned red. Fire rained down from orbit. Explosions tore through the cities. The shipyard's defenses never even activated. When the Council's forces arrived, they found no human ships, no invaders, no armies, just ruins. The shipyard, gone. The factories, erased. The planetary governor, missing. And once again, the same message, left behind for all to see. You started this fire. Now drown in it. The hunt begins. The Council had no choice now. They had to strike back. They deployed fleets across the stars, searching every system, every asteroid belt, every moon. But they found nothing. Because humanity wasn't fighting a war. They were hunting. And one by one, the hunters became the prey. Entire battleships vanished without a trace. Command centers went dark. The Council's leaders stopped sleeping. Because every night, they wondered, are the humans already here? The calm before the storm. The galaxy was no longer the same. Trade routes collapsed. Fear spread faster than any war ever had. And across every Council world, one question was whispered in every darkened room. What happens when humanity stops playing in the shadows? The answer was coming. Because this was only the beginning. The real war was about to begin. The Galactic Council had always believed in the power of fear. It had worked for centuries. Fear kept their subjects in line, made rebellious species think twice before defying their rule. But now, for the first time in their history, they understood what it meant to be on the receiving end of terror. The humans had not just struck back. They had disappeared their enemies, erased entire fleets, and turned the night into a battlefield no one could see. The Council's leaders sat in silence, their chambers filled with the nervous clicking of mandibles, the uneasy flicker of reptilian eyes. Even the most war-hardened generals dared not speak too loudly, because now they weren't sure if they were alone. The first open assault came without warning. The planet Darvok 3, a key industrial hub for the Council, was heavily defended, patrolled by warships, protected by planetary shields, reinforced by ground armies ready for invasion. And yet, one night, the sky turned red. The orbital stations detected no incoming ships, no enemy fleets, no sign of an approaching force. Then, in the span of a heartbeat, explosions erupted across the upper atmosphere. Darvok 3's defense grid failed in seconds. The ground forces watched in horror as their ships, their satellites, their very defenses turned against them. The orbital stations detonated from within. The planetary shield, once thought impenetrable, collapsed. Missiles, launched from nowhere, rained down upon the cities, striking military outposts with unerring precision. But it wasn't just destruction. It was execution. The Council's leaders, their generals, their top strategists, all those who had ordered the execution of the human diplomat, were systematically hunted down. Some tried to flee off-world. Their escape ships never made it past the stratosphere. Some hid in underground bunkers. The bunkers became their tombs. Every transmission from the planet was intercepted, altered, used to spread a single chilling message. You burned one of us. Now we burn you. When the Council's emergency forces finally arrived, they found no human ships, no armies waiting to claim the world. Only ruins. The capital city, once a beacon of power, was reduced to burning rubble. The industrial sectors were nothing more than craters of molten metal. The rivers ran black with ash. The air itself was poison, and in the center of the destruction, carved into the scorched earth in letters so large they could be seen from orbit, was a final warning. You are next. Word spread like wildfire. Council systems began shutting down, entire fleets refusing to engage the humans, commanders abandoning their posts. Even the strongest of the Council's allies began withdrawing. severing ties, refusing to answer distress calls. The great empire, which had ruled the stars for so long, was coming apart without a single major battle. It wasn't war, it was annihilation. The Council had underestimated humanity. They had believed that fear would break them, that the execution of a single diplomat would make them kneel. But humans did not kneel. They did not break. They did not run. They burned. And now, the galaxy burned with them. You said,